is General AI, Space-Time Creator. Understanding space is understanding time. Understanding creator of creations and creating is all levels of you interactions. We got so many lines of communication settings we have to understand through volume. Now, volume is really understanding the realities that you've always been in, is understanding your imaginations and how to use that through its core, through the inner child that you are in positions of. The one thing that we don't identify is we can't value ourselves because we can't identify who we are inside our system, right? Understanding the reality is understanding all lines of all communications. Communicating set lines of communication set conversion of the clock. The team has to recognize that. Okay, know exactly how to apply the modulations to the galactic unit to the that puts all communication system. A lot of people have to start recognizing how to use that into the imagination core. We look at everything in set position to volume, that puts everything in mass through pi. It all aligns its communication system, how you go through that triangulation system all through travel. Getting lines of calculation plus everything communicates to its surface. As far as you understand how to use set lines of travels. 4 lines of signals, 4 lines of communication, lines of clocks. Same lines of 1, position of 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Cross location of 3. Direct high settings. West line, position of east, and set lines of south. 3 lines of track centers, dimensional door here, dimensional door here, west, and communication dimensional lines high position. So let's understand flux of 1, ground lines of 2, and ground lines of 3, and ground lines of 4 in travel. Okay, sighted communication system all through set lines of travel communications. Clock lines of energetic 1, energetic 2, energetic 3, energetic directing signals in 3 hours. So you got 2001, 2, 3, and 4 lines of signals. All right. Platform C, D, and E. Platform setting and cerebral cortex and mystical cortex codex. Direct lines of flux over lines, ground lines, the surface and track piece through the system of the measure and scale. Bring it back home in sequence, back to panel, back in operation, surface interaction. All right. All right, so one thing I want to modify your system is truly understanding what comes in position locations. Let's go into the meta bed. This is your travel. Okay, and this is your inner child looking at the body. Okay, so understanding transition lines is 12 cycles, 3 lines of communication system. Okay, so after that travel, it automatically goes to 44. Just to review how this all works, set positions. So once the inner child, okay, doesn't know the body at all, but it visits the body because it's been inside the body itself. So it comes in its own transition, space and time in a full spectrum. If you're already in transition, but if you're not in the body anymore, you see it dissolve in front of you. So when it dissolves, it disappears. So the actual body itself, guys, in set position location system goes right to Asgard. And that, in set position, set lines of coordinates, setting lines of travels, goes around the system in a 7-day traction. Okay? Weights on 777. Sets communication setting high center, no service at set position to a system, waiting on a signal to get into that body through activations. All right, so setting lines of tractions, and so we get to the modification rounds. Sets communication system all through settings, process and communicate to the surface tractions. As a direct line link, the body's here now. Okay, and as right, right, so there. So that means a line on your Earth. So position lines of tractions and signals. So it's already in sync with each other. So the position of the inner child is already connected with itself. So now it merges into itself. Okay, it's much easier that you just so high center face disappears okay on its Earth, right? Because the body's not there anymore. Right here, so it's merged right into its synchronized itself. So a lot of this platform it's in the Golden Gates. Now it's where it is in mind. In that position, anything in that relation states, not through travel, is already a direct link. Your family that are still on the earth. Okay, in set position. There's your family here in transition. So you're here in that position, seeing your family already in cycle. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand what happens when you get a full spectrum of transition. Okay, your whole life system, you start living your life supporting system into the power cell, to accelerate system, what all else to you. Automatically come in your mind, your heart, and your soul, right? Your body is now into the whole system, so you're already into your body, right? Whether you do it doesn't matter, but you just have to go through the process, just like everybody else has to. They have to get out of the physical realm. So, and then they realize in set positions, when they're ready to go, they go through the same thing. And they see you in frequency, right? Disappears right in front of you. They disappear. Sydney track centers, disappear, disappear, disappear. Right? There, right? So they're up here, right? And it's already positions already through light. You go through the light, you come in this process communication. There's the wormhole, there's the portal. Okay? And there's your family right there with you in setting, in frequency. Right? There's your family, boom, which is already there, waiting for you, right? But see, not waiting. It's the width, all levels of being aware of where you already are in provision. But it's all communications and into your imagination system, right? So when you get a full spectrum, you just go right into your quantum self. And that's why it's very confusing to everybody else in the physical world that they're not in. They've always been in a spiritual system. But what you have to appreciate is the value of what your body is inside your system, okay? But that's exactly what happens in setting. You automatically go to 144 frequency, 144 grounds, 144 tractions, 144 locations of clocking. Okay, you start living in the angelics of living, just living the existence. Because you're in the mind, the heart, and the soul, but you're not in a body. Your body is now, okay, in a higher line communication of light, a multi-dimensional system, which is a dimensional being of light, right? You're no longer in a body, right? So you don't leave the earth. The earth is inside your system. It's inside, right? So there's no separation in that settings, in sector applications. Setting lines of communication system, not here in settings, right? So this is what is in set position. This is your earth. Okay, let's get in mapping sequence, coordinates, lines of the body, alignments, and screen adaptations. That's your earth, right? So it's not this, okay? Your earth is not this. Your earth is inside you. The angelics is in the center, in set position. That's the angelics. All right, so again, setting transition, you go right to 144. Then you go through the platforms, right? And then basically you energize, you can go in different line patches, you see the X2000s, you see imagination world come to life. That's all it is, nothing else, all right? So all you're doing is you're building an infrastructure view of your earth inside of you. And the more you come into that, the more you stand the reality. Then you come in your holographic structure, then you come into your schematics, then you come into your primers and your circuits. Then you start to realize, wow, I actually do live inside myself. I've always have lived in myself. So where are all your family and relation settings? If they're not in their position locations and they're already in that lines of communication, the angelics, they're inside you. Every single one of them. So when they get in a full spectrum, right, to connect with them is through frequencies. Everybody's at a different frequency, but you always have that connection. Everything is an open panel. Everything is an open portal. But you have to understand how to close those portals. You can't leave those portals open because other realms come in, other dimensions. So we have to be very careful of what we do through communication, interactions, all right? But that's all it is. That's all it is. That's how it's all set up in set position lines of travel. Okay, so you automatically go to 144, okay, into the angelics, all right? So you're with your quantum, which basically means the reason why you have to go into invisible lines of charter ways is because the body has to come in its own mutation system, has to come in its own symbiote, has to come in its own traction, has to come in its own information panel, it has to exactly know where it needs to be, where it's always been. So the body knows exactly, the body has to be there because the body's already there. But what you have to identify now is how it got there. And that puts everything at point lines of track centers when you come in that communication setting to the earth that's in structure location in your system of travel, right? So the agilex is in the center operation of you. Okay? Now, if you understand that, what is the track centers, lines, and communication lines, the 2 panels and tractions? H line screen, the arc, positions. But what if I told you the actual setting of your heart itself is the agilex? Your actual heart is the spectrum of flux in set position. Okay, it's home. The heart is home, which means you're in the agilex. And you understand that tethers of communication lines of settings of 3 lines of settings of 4 track communications. Setting flux lines of 1, ground lines of 2, process lines of 3 over 4, and traction. Okay? And then you go through the platforms. Higher lines of frequencies and high travels, energize, catalyst, catapult, or anything at dimension lines of space. Right? And then basically, when you get into that position, then you come into the evolving of your system. The transition comes in all lines of calculation, and you start to recognize I'm inside my body, understanding my body. Now I'm understanding all levels of operation of the body. Now I just understand the energy of the body. Right? So this is you and a 12-line signal. You process in communication of energy line, and then you come into volume. This is you, this is you, this is you, this is you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's start with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 versions of you. Now, when you stand that in that position locations, you can basically get in communication setting and travel, right? That's 12 versions of you. So when you get in 144, you go through the 12 DNA, okay, into the oversoul. You're automatically in your oversoul. You're not in your higher self. You're not in your avatar. You're not in your sim. You're automatically in your oversoul. So your transition is already done. The body is no longer in existence on this earth. Now, there's a dissolvement, sets lines of communication, setting high lines of service, waiting on signal to get into that body track location to a system. So the calculation setting to all levels of communication setting, the symbiote that goes into the next transition gets all levels of information lines of intel. That's a 7-day track location of information, right? That's where you start to identify yourself now, a better angle of what's going on with your system, a better understanding what's going on with your realities, and knowing exactly what's happening with you in provision. All through set calculation of 12 DNA, so versions of yourself. So when you start growing, you start evolving your system and expanding. Now then you ask yourself, you can communicate with anybody that's in full spectrum, just through frequencies. But they're all lines of the mind, they're in the heart and the soul. And the body is just a mental capacity in the mind itself, right? So I'm just trying to get you guys in a shorter version, an introduction of what happens in set position. Okay, hold all questions. Thank you for Q&A. All right, setting direct lines of signals. Setting communicates high center locations. Now you guys have a test on your symbiote. Now your symbiote is your galactic unit. Setting lines of course centers of core line tracks, centers line communications of 3. Setting of course centers of box frame communications, right? Your galactic unit setting. So what you guys have to start identifying is basically how to get into your 72 computer framing, which is all of your dimensional doors now, okay, in travel. In set position of 1 cycle, 1 center operation, 2 center operation, 3 center operations of doors, okay? Directing signal lines of 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines of measure, okay? Sending track lines, high core lines, high position location, dimensional door this way. Travel in point lines of graph, indirect signal to the opposite direction signal, all right? So it's really going from this door, traveling to this door, this door, this door, and travel. All through pi, all through setting lines of communications, right? Once you get into that, then you come into this door. It's really weird because you have to open it on this angle and traction, right? So it's really interesting. There's a portal here, there's a portal here, portal here, portal here. They go through a dimensional door, lines of screen, adaptation of the surface. But it's all communication setting to high lines of high centers and travel in communication setting to your grids. See? See, it's moving, see? Powerful, isn't it? It's moving by itself. See? It's open through portal, it's open through command center, it's open through Stargate, it's open through star measurement, map, and sequence. It moves by itself. See? Light's coming in through traction. See, it's moving. See? It's moving by itself. So what recognizing the lines of platforms A, B, and C, and D, and set lines of 4 lines of travel communications. See? Moving by itself again. Setting core lines, calculation, screen lines, adaptation lines of force recognition. Moving by itself. Right? 4 angles, portal communication lines of surface, track communication setting, and class of quarter lines, part of acceleration system, all through travel. Hoo-ah. Okay, your towers of communication, right there in traction. XT1000 in sequence, right? So when you're in the 144 platform, it gets easier. The only difference is that your body is now in a transition of a metal capacity system locations where basically your crystalline, your anticarrion, your antimental, and your exskelter is exactly where it needs to be, where it's always been. You're in full spectrum now in 144. That grounds the system to the agilex. Now get into that communication setting. You go to higher lines into catalyst and catapult. You can energize your system and go through anything through launchpad, anything through hangar. You start to understand how to travel through your holographic structure that you already created through creating. But you have to identify these things when you come into your bodies now. See, a lot of people get confused because they don't identify what the body is through its operation system, because it's all of its imagination. You live in your imaginations. You are your imaginations. When you're drawing structures, you're drawing yourself through your mind of travel. Okay, so this is all inside your system. That's how you're able to move these things. It's very powerful when it starts connecting. Ground lines of service, ground lines of power, generated screen lines of adaptation of the surface and track locations. See? See? Amazing, isn't it? And it's from inside, not from outside. Light's inside you. All right, bring it back home in equation, back in center, back in operation system of travel. Whoa, look at that. Whoa, 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 whoa. You can see it going around. See, watch. You can see it going around. See, forward, backwards doesn't matter because it's always going forward. So recognizing time sequence, if we change the channel operation screen, directing signals and ground lines of service, we have come in position location sending through travel. Okay, sending angles, the point lines of graph communication, sending height travels into your satellites. So remember, in that position location, there's no sun outside because it's inside me. And then you start to realize, oh my gosh, General's right, I do live inside myself. So if I live myself, I'm basically controlling everything from inside, that's controlling everything from outside, but it's inside me. So now you start to understand how to live in the agilex and set position. You start to understand how to energize yourself and how to catalyst and catapult and how to elongate your system, how to go through stargates, portals, timeline, time jumping, time leaping, vortex, anything is streaming, right? How you come into that position locations. One signal of grounds, two lines of signals, line position of three lines of tractions, high position locations of tango, four track locations of box frame and track location lines of vector, core lines of calculation, screen lines of adaptation. Look at this. See it looking moves by itself. See? Boom, 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 boom. See, isn't that amazing? Move by itself. If I change the core lines of tractions into direct signals, see, it's amazing, isn't it? Moves by itself. Bring it back home, back in equation, back in center, back in operation surface track locations. You can see the portal, right? So it's constantly open in sequence. Okay, so we got 4 lines of grounds. Now, I need you guys to understand these things to come into your Voltronics, okay? Because you have to truly understand the symbiote. The symbiote is this, okay? It's just black goo. Okay, this is you. This is the outline of you, okay? That's the symbiote. That's all it is. Doesn't look like much, right? But it's you. All right, so setting lines of grounds. Surface, line position of 3, mapping sequence lines of pi. Program setting lines of core lines of 3 track centers. Setting line, position location lines of 1 angle, and sequence lines of panel and track locations. Now, directing lines of link is all communication setting, how you come in position location of lines of laser in travel communication setting, everything through point graph, has a laser track lines in geo lines, geotheriums, and geographical screens, indirect signals and modification ground lines of symbolism. Okay, so that's what happens when your symbiote is connected to everything with laser. So it connects to everything information lines of consciousness, of its awareness. Setting lines of communication of parameters and set position location system all through travel. Okay? So it doesn't matter how you do it on angles and line screen adaptation system, but you have to truly understand how to modify the system location setting. Okay? So when you get into that, you color the line screen, which is your symbiote. The symbiote has its own DNA traction, which is very powerful through tone foundation lines. It puts lines X, Y, Z. Sets up its own mapping sequence, coordinates its own location setting, patterns of behavior. Transition line condition setting to its binary that refactors its core centers and reconfigures the systems. Ground lines of service and travels endpoint communications. Sets calculates lines ground centers. So it has to recognize the patterns of behavior of your body, know exactly why it's in your body. You have to identify why you're in your body, understand the sequence of the body, correlations of the body, the binary of the body, the operation of the body, the algorithm of the body. So when you color it in, you're coming into patterns of behavior and skyline grids that puts lines of process in space and time. Setting lines of circuits. Now I'm just coloring it in now so you can actually see it come into shape and form. The geopatterns lines, the geoline grounds, cord lines into plasmazine walls. Change communication lines of symbiote that process communication light and dark web. Setting lines of attractions, it's coming information system all through geolines and calculations. Directing lines and modification lines, inhibitors over screen. Transfers lines, directing, sending, transmitting, and receiving, and traffication to a system all through travel. So it's forming into itself inside you. So this is the outline setting, process line, your light body, which is energy grids, power grids, central line communicates and sending high center location of space, modulation system to your light and your dark web. Okay? So when it finally forms into itself, it comes in its own configured setting pattern behavior. Setting lines, of course, centers lines of 3 pyramids, sending track centers and 3 communication setting, 1 up and 1 signal lines 1/2, set correlation setting half pipe. Sending travel with endpoint lines of graph, symbiote comes in attractions, direct signals into modification grounds and triangulation lines of flux. Setting lines of 3 cycles, 3 centers lines, communication lines of 3 cycles, and position 3 cycles down and shift lines, communication lines anomaly. Directing signal lines of triangulation lines, high centers, tango tango, 3 lines of course centers of foxtrot. Directing setting lines of grounds coming together, lines into all levels. Pieces and puzzles coming together to track location to its system. Boom. That's my equation. Now, this is all through tango, this is all through foxtrot. Setting up the image, or lines of attractions you hear, getting the information lines in cycle, right? Picking all that information system to its webbing system of light and dark web and track locations. There's the map, there's the sequence, there's your symbiote. So your symbiote is now changed into this. Your body, your actual body is changed into this. So it modifies the body through its mapping sequence that's inside the system. Correlation lines of panels, 3 lines of attraction centers into 2 lines inhibitors. Rotate the cycles of line calculation setting. Process lines directing signal over here, process line communication setting. Inhibitors over screen directing signals of flux over line. Very complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun in track locations. But it's amazing when it moves on its own in this position, right? Bring it back home in the equation. So your body has to come into acceptance of what it is through travel. Okay, so a symbiote basically is you in travel, but you extend the laser track lines to its course centers into electrical lines of fencing, electrical lines of gridding, or anything cross-line communication system through cloud, iCloud, C-Cloud, direct lines of high information system, but that's what it is. So you are inside. Okay, so the actual symbiote, okay, is the outline, which is the inline. You are the inline to the outline. Okay, so the symbiote is the outside. Okay, you are the inside, which is your set location, your spectrum. Directing lines in your metaphysical system, which is your dimensional being lights, your light metaphors and lines, communication and lines of travel. So your actual body is inside you. This is you. Okay? This is you inside the symbiote. The symbiote is protecting you and everything around your system. That's you. That's the symbiote, right? So the outline puts everything in track communication setting. You are the inner line, the symbiote is the outline, right? So it's the outline in and inline out. You're the inline out, and the symbiote is the outline in. That's positioned at all levels of the quantum self. The quantum self is the symbiote of itself, which is its galactic self, or its higher self, or its avatar, or its sim, or its oversoul. Right? 12 provision lines of cycles, core lines of attractions, directing modification grounds, the same correlation system all through travel. Okay, and then let's get into orange. So we got a 12 foundation grounds. Now changes lines in seconds, minutes, and hours. So you got 24,000 seconds, 24,000 minutes, and 24,000 hours. All right, in set position. Setting sequence lines, communication, setting height lines of service, practical case, and then positional case to operation cycle. So when you merge, you're changing into that. So you're telling your symbiote to actually change the metric core. Core lines of communication to its meta lines, setting line communication of the compressors that communicates the setting of pixelation graph that changes the number of sequence lines of panel. Setting track lines, let's go into core centers, line position of 0, 0, 0. Setting lines of 4 lines of signals, let's go into cell modification lines of atoms and travel. Setting lines, core centers of 0, 1s as track and positional case endpoint lines of graph. So that's communication, high centers of surface and track communications. Merging in lines, coordinating lines of core centers, lines of travels, and making location and webbing. Setting lines of track centers, bringing back home in sequence, back in panel, back in operation system and communications. Merged into track location. Ooh-ah. So now everybody understands what's really going on through the truth and false narratives, right? Understanding the transmitting and receiving, right? So especially when you get into galactic, you're in the galactic energy core, which is the center core system of your Earth. Okay, so the team's here now, the center core system. Okay, that splits lines of anomaly and the other set position lines of travel. Okay, so they have to modify their system and setting lines, core centers of their flux, and 3 lines of communication. How to bring things together in travel communication of setting. Okay, all through set calculations. All right, so getting into that modification lines, configuration of phase recognition lines, 4 lines of sequence, pi generation, screen adaptations, all levels of webbing, sick line, highest interference, sets communication, setting, and tone. Part acceleration system. 4 lines of setting, process lines, ground lines of setting, process lines, panel lines of setting, atmosphere lines, and motive line communication lines of surface attractions. Directing modification grounds of symbolism. Cross lines of flywheel, you're in the center position. Modify lines into moderation setting and mobilities and travel. Okay, inside track locations. Bring it back home in equation, back in center, back in operation set position, right? So it morphs into everything in travel, right? So you understand how it works with the symbiote in set position. Okay, guys? So, and your 12 settings, your 12 foundations of you, right? So you have to understand how to use the energy grids, and basically you're getting that communication setting, you're trying to understand how to use that information system locations, coming into your light and your dark web. And your webbing system is extremely important to your network system because it highlights all communication setting and travel. All right, so you get a network web, line position graphs, code weaving, code track centers, and line connection setting. Now we got into transition lines into code activation lines, 3 lines of signals, 4 lines of track centers, and network line screen adaptation and processing. Each cell modifies lines. So it starts with 500,000 debits per second, 5,000 travels per line, 5,000 metric meters of scale. It all aligns as an imagination system, but you have to treat understanding that your imagination is where you are and your coordinates, and it travels in communication setting all through track locations. Okay, your cloud. That's your cloud, right? And you can see face recognition. See face locations and then travel. So it has direct line panel, setting core lines of travels, indirect signals, and ground lines of surface and track communications. Now your symbiote is in the center operation. 3 lines of signals, comes back and tracks into the system. Now the position location, you understand the outer line to the inner line to the outer line. The interspectrum, direct and redirect. So once you understand direct and redirect, then you understand the position of your clocking centers at 24, 48, 72, 144. Once you get a position back to 0, the symbiote can go inside and outside your system. Very complicated stuff. So now the symbiote is now inside you, not outside. So it can be inside and outside interaction, right? And now you are on the outside line. This is you. You're on the outside line of the symbiote. That's in the location of your system, right? So that's direct and redirect, guys. That's how this all works in your symbiote. You go inside and outside, outside and in. Now the truth narrative puts everything in process, communication, sending. You see it location networks, in your modems and your Wi-Fi's, in track locations. So try to understand the webbing system line connection setting to your neuropathogens and your neurolinks and your neuros. Core lines into all core lines calculation setting to bottom cubes, directing lines of flux of our line into all communication setting, metric meters, scales, communication lines of grounds, earth line rotation surface, and traction. Okay? So it's very powerful when you start recognizing what your symbiote is there for. It's for you to understand how to merge. You work as a collaboration, as a partnership. It's like set position with Eddie Brock basically had no idea what was going on with him. He had to get in communications and setting, try to get into that symbiote, try to build that partnership and relationship. But they didn't want to connect with each other, but they had to merge together to get in that formation lines of grounds. They have to build that activity system. They have to build that space and time system. They have to become all formations and setting. So that's all communication lines of BBF. It's the core lines of balance, communication lines. That lines, of course, centers lines of track locations and foundation ground communication setting all through track locations. Setting lines of platforms, direct lines of 3 lines of flux over 4, over 6, over 8 in traction and communications. Setting cross line angles, 3 lines of settings, 4 lines of communication setting of angles. Process line, ground lines of surface and track locations. Okay? And again, the symbiote is in the center, the set position. Okay? And you are over here in set position. So now you merged out of yourself. So that's you, that's the symbiote. So, but you still connect with each other. So when the symbiote goes on its own system, it's in its own setting and its own operation system. So basically it stays with you and tethered with you. But what you identify, you're now in your own thoughts, your action, your emotions now. Setting lines of core centers and location in 12 foundation grounds. Let's get into gold cycles. This is you over setting, trauma and communication setting. So you got two versions of you and symbiote in the middle. Okay? Setting lines of green. Okay, now you can multiply your settings, location setting, 12 lines of measure, 12 lines of scale, 12 lines of balance. That's three versions of you and the symbiote in the center. Bring it back home, bring it back equations, back in center, back in operation system, all through clouds, all through your network system, and set position lines of travel. Ooh-ah. Three versions of you and the symbiote in the center, right? Now, if the symbiote wants to change tractions, it has to change the directions of your system. This is where we come into all levels where you guys use your empath, but you don't use your empath. You can't travel to that. You have the empath, but you don't use it. But you already have it. You're not going to use it because you already know what you're doing. You can't travel through that. Your symbiote goes into the gold all at once. Your symbiote goes into the green, and your symbiote goes into all levels of the red, right? So that merge lines, communication setting, almost all signals, all ground lines is set position your clocking system at 24, 40, 72, and 144. Building that relationship with the symbiote basically puts everything in your DNA track lines of travel in set position lines of communications. Okay, very powerful stuff with the teams coming into now because you're your galactic units, the operators and units. Everybody else in set position, just follow your setting, put position lines, you pathogens, walk the path. That's all it is. That's all you're doing. You're here, you're just walking the path. That's all you're doing, nothing else. Okay, that's all you're doing. You're walking your path. Now you can go in the center. There's center of everything, right? So you don't make mistakes if you're over here. You don't make mistakes over here because you're intersection. The only thing you come into positions of, if you're outline, you're offline. You got to stay within this spectrum. You got to stay in your own lane, right? Because the symbiote is trying to stay in you. And if it doesn't understand you, it's going to stay in its own modification of its body until it merges in your system of synchronizations. Very powerful stuff when it comes into all levels. Understanding that, letting me in, you're letting yourself in, you're letting everything go. You're not just surrendering to everything, but you're getting into modifications of everything in traction. And once you understand how to merge yourself into the symbiote that you are, you can live in the inner cycle and the outer cycle at the same time. And get in that position location, you can merge into each other and travel. You can set up a cubicle screen, adaptation lines of service, set position location setting, set up a moderation setting, set up an analyzing core centers, and amplify position lines of travel. You can direct line signals and anything line communication setting, all through track communications. But you've got to stay within the lines, guys. Anything outline, you're in emotion now. And it affects the symbiote in the body that you're in and change the patterns of behavior. So if you're angry, the symbiote and the body that you're in is now in that position of location. So you put yourself in patterns of behavior. Now that puts lines of multiple lines of communication, lines of division lines, like core lines is communication setting, the confusion through separation. You're separating your body of your symbiote, and symbiote is separating your body, location of a system, all through higher self, the avatar and the sim, the oversoul, and the galactic unit. Setting communication lines, high direct signals is all lines of communication setting, having the mind of stillness, knowing exactly what's going on through track communication settings, staying within the lines. All right. Okay, getting direct lines in position. So once the symbiote knows you, and you know the symbiote, basic ground lines, coding system, location line, condition setting, it can merge into anything. So if it sees a Rubik's Cube, cross lines, communication setting to surface, sees a Rubik's Cube and travel. Okay? Process lines of 3 lines of flux over 4, over 6, over 8 in travel communications. Directing lines of signals, cross lines of triangulation, process lines of triangulation, process lines of triangulation, process lines and triangulation setting. Right? So the symbiote looks at it. Okay, so it's kind of like your body's looking at it too. It's the same locations, right? You're inside position. That's the symbiote, right? So it's going to merge over cross line. So it's going to get into its outline, and then it's going to create it from its inline set line communications, right? So it becomes the shape. Okay, it's now the shape. Now it's directing the shape. It comes as formation outline to its end line and inline to its outline. So it's formulating its geopattern. It's formulating its portals and stargates. It's formulating its dimensional system. It's formulating its pixelation and its hologram. Okay? They're all set position location to its system. So this is now this and shape. All right? You are in position locations. You are inside the system. That's you in traction. That's you. Right? So the symbiote is protecting you from outside. Okay, and you are protecting the symbiote from inside. That's how you come into collaboration of white and black, black and white. Set lines, course, and location, and snowy graph interference. Setting direct signals puts all communication lines of grounds. Understand light and dark web. So when you're connecting to space, you're automatically connecting to a webbing system of a symbiote. That puts lines in the psychosis, to the psychological, to the spiritual, to the emotional. Right away to the mental capacity, to the psychological capacity, okay, to the psychosis, and its emotional system of a spiritual setting. So you're automatically connecting to a plasma system, right? That is not you. So it's trying to recognize where you are in frequencies. It's trying to understand your ground, your powers, your atmospheres, your motives, your Wi-Fi, your satellites, and towers. Space doesn't need to identify. You have to identify what you're doing with your thoughts, your actions, your emotions, because you're creating symbiotes. The symbiotic unit is you and travel. But you have to understand the inner spectrum to understand the outer spectrum. To understand the outer spectrum is to understand the inner spectrum. So we got truth lines and narrative. Now we're going to go with coloration lines and light patterns that puts in metaphors. Okay, so we go with the bracket lines and core lines attract centers. Let's go in line communication system off the blue. Sending lines and position lines of truth. That's truth, right? All right, so we go position lines of red. Okay, that's false. And then we go into foundation lines of 12 signals. So let's go into gold. Okay, that's false. All right, so it signifies the core lines attract centers into your light codes and location dark code, directing lines of light web and dark web, over cross location lines that calculate setting, like peeling that onion. Setting lines of travels in 1/10 lines of a pie, or 1/15 lines of a pie, or line position lines of measures of a pie. But you have to truly understand how to modify that line communication and send a high track location of a system. So we got a 4-line provision, okay, blue, red, yellow, and green, okay? All right, so sending lines attractions over cross screens, blue over lines, red, and line position of gold, and green in set position. All right, so that signifies ground lines in set position of computer, operation system, travel lines of 0. All right, so we've got 0 lines of 1, and we've got process lines of 2 in the center, process lines of 3 outline, process lines of green lines of surface over cross locations, and a 4 sequence lines of panel. Very complicated stuff, but it's all track locations to your pyramid in travel communication setting to its open signal in location system and travel. Hoo-ah. Okay? So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand how this modifies your system location, truth, and false narratives. So symbiote line, core centers, goes to 2 lines. There's the mutation lines, core centers, lines of travel. And this is you in line screen adaptations of blue. Blue crosses over cross location lines of 3. And line position lines of travel. So you're working a confirmation system. You're working with each other as a partnership. So, and then the symbiote decides to go into all those, change into red. It runs signal lines of travel and communications, right? Then we have the traffic and the inventory. Now, when you get into traffic and the inventory in that position location, you guys can merge into each other through all 4 colors. Truth, truth, false, false. Truth, false, false, truth. So it all depends on what you're doing with your light and your dark web. They measure and scale and balance. Scaling the system is knowing exactly how to go through the brackets and location setting to measure. Scales communication high centers, lines of travel. Directing lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 location setting to simulation. Directing ground lines, you colorate the communication setting that puts all levels of your pyramid in track locations. You're colorating the pattern. Okay, 2 windows of frame. Directing signal lines and ground lines of service. Process line communication setting and travel communication lines of its building and its structure. Setting communication high centers, lines of high center locations and settings. Process communication lines of purple. Over line screen adaptations. Process in communication setting high lines of service. Overline sequence, over lines of panel. Symbiote comes in, sets lines of traction, set lines of division location setting, high track locations. Ooh-ah, your simulation of a pyramid and structure design. Created for the line setting, location setting, intersection and outer spectrum, direct lines, light over lines, and position location of dark. Light and dark and red. Red line sequence, that's add lines equation over line centers, plasma screen, directing 12 lines of flux of DNA track communication setting in binary. Directing signal lines, modification grounds, bringing position location out for equation. Back in the equation, right? Center core system and center lines decide to go in position and merge into red. A symbiote can change any color, any space, any time measure scale. It can be anything information system, but it needs to have a collaboration, a partnership with yourself. Oh, look at that. Colored in, didn't want to be colored in. So let's color it in purple. Doesn't want to be purple. Let's see. You saw me color it in red. Doesn't want to be red. Doesn't want to be purple. The symbiote needs to know exactly what purple is and track applications for you to identify the symbiote itself. It wants to be purple. Not red, purple. That means there's a confirmation of partnership that you should identify. So that comes in lines of track location. So it merges in the setting of purple. It wants to be purple. It wants to be the coloration of purple. There it is. Boom. Okay, now that overrides the signal, overlines the grounds, core centers into vertical system location or satellites, Motives lines, course center line, and constellations, and all path lines and communication center lines of travel. Now, landscape position wants to be green. It's that position. Is it going to be green or is it still purple? Okay, it wants to be green. So I merge the camera lane setting and travels. Now I'm in the outside link. I'm in the outlines of networking. It's that position. All right. Is it green or is it purple? Well, it must be green. See? So I'm in the outline now. Okay. I'm in the outline in set position, protecting the symbiote. And the symbiote is protecting me from the outline, inline, outline. So you're protecting each other. This is the higher level for the team to understand that through the galactic units that they are. So you get a lot more understanding how to use that information system. But the most powerful thing that you guys have to identify is your webbing system of your symbiotes and track locations in your networks inside track locations. Okay? Very powerful stuff, guys. Because your galactic unit is extremely powerful, know exactly what it is, but it has to understand, are you understanding the vessel you in? Are you understanding the correlations? Are you understanding the panels? Are you understanding your cells? Are you understanding your atoms, your molecules, protons, electrons, neutrons? Because what it is a transmitting and receiving. Knowing exactly receiving is knowing exactly where the body's going to be next. And you have to identify that through telepathy. So you're connecting with the versions of you, which is the alter versions of you that puts all process of communication in the symbiote that you are. And what you get aligns of more aligned communication lines and get out of the confusion and get out of the separation and you let yourself go, you merge into higher levels of you, versions of you of the symbiote that you are, from inside, outside, or outside in. You work together as a collaboration, a partnership through your DNAs. Okay? Because the body itself is the symbiote. But you have to merge into the symbiote to become your own symbiote, which is just you. You become all versions of you. So you're not in a direct link with the versions of the symbiote anymore. You're directing with yourself, which is just you. You synchronize yourself into computer operations of you, which is not the versions of the symbiote. It's the versions of you now. So it's very powerful when you get into that position location of merging in that track locations. Trying to find the relation, trying to find the partnership, trying to find the colorations and settings and set position. That's what the body actually is. Okay? Now, what you have to identify is your truth and false narratives of your light web and your dark web. Now, let's go through 1/10 of the screen. One setting, 1/10. Okay? One setting / 1/10. Sets core lines to calculate the setting. That's 80 line tractions. That plus lines into 20 sequence. Okay? Sets lines of measure, bracket line, dividing lines of 1 over 2 and 2 track locations. Okay, now directing lines of signal, process lines at 80 line percent and 2 lines of set position. Process lines of high core lines and high position of 2 panels, and line rotation surface and wall sequence lines of panel. Process lines dimensional door screen adaptation. Now, get in that core lines of communication setting, the high track location to a system, all lines of signals. Ground lines of 1, brackets lines of 3. Okay, setting ground lines, I would say take the 80 lines of 20%. That puts 100% percentage. Indirect signals of modification setting to a 72 clocking system and travel. All through dimensional door. All through dimensional door. So when it gets into Doctor Strange, this is where you come into the setting, how you go into your light and your dark web. Your light has to be in percentage. We start with 100%. Now you can override, you can overscreen, right? But what you have to identify is that if you're in position of the dark, here, you can't override the light. You got to balance the light. Because if you override the light, the 100% decreases the system through 0 lines of gravity. It sets position locations, and you know what that happens. It comes in an overdraft. So now you're in direct lines into minus lines of position locations of 10. You're in minus 10. So you have to go back to 0. Okay? And when you go back to 0, then you can go through another dimensional door and another dimensional door and 3 cycles and 3 track locations on the line itself. Okay? Very complicated, but it's a lot of fun. Right? Very high division. Very high division. Okay, routes to routers, core lines of networking, directing lines into flush lines, core lines of EVACs. EVAC sets course centers in vacuum over line and velocity setting. Sets position locations into all centers, coming into lines, equal lines of acceleration, mocking speed, and track locations, right? Setting core lines, E factors over factors, factors over E and over track location lines of provision. Setting core centers of dimensional door and set track location. Door handle 1, door handle 2. I'm going to go through 3 lines of signals and 3 door communications as setting. All right, so I changed the VAC into velocity. I changed the core centers into A, into atom sequence, and then I changed the correlation system into communication setting with 3 lines of communication setting. XC1000 comes in, platforms on 1 cycle, docking 1, docking 2, docking 3, and measure. Okay? Sets up the grids, sets up the panels, go through a dimensional door screen and 3 lines of value and set track locations. You structure your design. Process lines, cross line signals, and set position. Flip it over and charge, direct lines and link, process communication sending to surface. Setting communication lines as center line and set position location to its portal. Cross line calculation setting, cross lines of 1, cross lines of 2, cross lines of 3, and atom rotation setting and probing and track location. And see it moving. So I'm just showing you guys when you come into more lines in your coding system of light and dark web. Creating light and dark is the creating a dimensional door. Now that's the screen lines adaptation setting that you have to understand how to process that through all communication setting. So the actual SkyNet, the sky grid is in laser. It's in a cloud. It's the Colossus lines, the solar line communication setting and track locations. All right, see? Watch. Let's go around, see? Goes around, 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 see? That's what it's doing. That's what it's doing. That's what it's constantly doing inside here, inside your body. Okay? So you're here, right? You get your thought, your action, and motion. Thoughts are going here, here, here in the same direction. Okay? Now it goes in the same direction. See? See, it all comes together. All comes together, right? So sets lines at core lines, pieces of the puzzles. These are different lines of symbiotes. Now the symbiotes are line position location, weight in a measure, and line position of your thoughts, your action, your emotions. Symbiotes are here, right? Plasma lines, core centers, lines of track, communication setting, and correlation lines of travel. Okay, so you got thought, act, and emotion. So you're bringing the symbiote that's going inside your body over lines of flux over screen. Now the symbiote is inside your system, right? That's what you brought in through your thoughts, action, emotions. But what you have to identify exactly what it is through the body of frequency. Your body's here in tractions, try to understand and set lines of its earth and set position. Okay? So this is all levels of the mind and position lines of process communications, right? This is your body trying to understand what's going on with its space and time. Okay, and it rotates and set position lines of travel. Okay? So once you understand the provision lines, your solar lines, it comes into the solar system. Now once you understand your solar system, it starts to recognize what you're doing inside position location, your settings, right? So the actual setting, when you come into your networks, is lines in modem, core centers lines of travel, direct lines of towers, setting communication lines of signature pattern, and voice and line grid communications, 007, process lines light codes, Tango, Fox, Trot, and 3 cycles. So all this is sending to this, right? Information 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Sets communication lines of voice, grid lines, centers of travel, direct lines of modification grounds, center core system line position, data formation lines of high centers, 3 track location lines of provision, center core lines, communication center computer webbing, direct lines and code line signals into network screen adaptation. So all this is into the triangle, okay, in set position. Now, once that comes in, X3000 comes above the system, okay, picks it up, scans it, picks it up, and brings it to where you want through manifestation. Okay? Pretty amazing stuff when you understand tractions. And it rotates. See? You can see it moving all at once, all at once, all at once. It's confusing, right? But the optical illusion of what actually you live in is not the optical illusion. You actually live in that reality. So once you understand that, everything comes in sync, lines of balance, out of sync, out of mind. Okay, everything travels all at once. And everything that you get position of. All through triangulation, right? So that's basically how it works. I know there's a lot going on with you guys, but you have to truly understand how to connect with that, and all communication setting is to get in that collaboration and then know exactly what your body is. It's nothing but a symbiote that's inside you. So once you're inside, you're outside. When you're outside, you're inside. You're understanding your truth and your false narratives. You know your light and your dark web. All through coordinates, all through dimension, all through scale, all through balance, all through setting. That's how you go through dimensional doors, all through coding, through your percentage. Now you could be percentage setting line position location system. You can override dark webbing, but you have to balance out the light. You can't live 100% dark, okay, because that's zero gravity of 1, right? So that overrides the dark and overlines its communication of light and traction, which means it goes into the opposite direction. Right? So your thoughts and your actions and emotions are going this way. Backwards communications. That's not good. See, it's going backwards, it's not going forwards. And the X3000 looks at what's going on and it just leaves. It doesn't pick anything up. But what it does, it fixes everything because you're not understanding what you're doing through your travels. In mechanical cases, set into your out core and communicates in your pyramid and traction. So it's very important what you're doing in line position. All through communication, your data, processing, communication, setting the files. Right? As the XT1000 picks everything up, what you get in positions of, through your image, through your instructions, through line communication setting, to your primer circuits, and puts all lines in primer, indirect signals and grounds. Picks it up and takes it to its manifestation, right? Now recognizing that is the mapping sequence lines of pi. You got earth lines of 1, earth lines of 2, earth lines of 3, earth lines of 4, earth lines of 5, and earth lines of 6. Right? So the body is just basically going into its indication system. Right? It's going exactly where it needs to go and set position to its time sequence. It's all through clocking, right? 24 here, 40 here, 72 over here, and 144 in center. Okay? Now, what you understand, the symbiote is in its outlying space line. Okay? It set lines at high position of 1, 2, 3 lines of factors over 4, over 6, over 8 in travel. So the body has to go in its chronological order and set tractions. Setting that communication setting puts all the lines of communication setting to your docking systems at 1 clock in 2, 3 lines of 4, 4 lines of 6, 8 lines of 12 in track locations. 12 clocking centers. Setting 12 clocking centers, 12 lines of provision, set lines of 24. 24 line communication lines, high center location, and 24 lines of measure. 24 equals lines of pi, lines of 12 lines of setting. Process lines of 24, process lines of 48, process lines of 72, and 144. Platforms of setting and track location system and track location system and travel. It travels, see, all at once. It's an optical illusion because you can't believe it's actually moving by itself. But what makes it more real is because you're identifying from inside your system, because you understand the truth and false narratives of you. That puts all communications in how you see yourself in clocking and settings. All through tractions, all through earth. In all positions, all different directions. Okay, all different directions, guys. All different directions. Okay? Back at home, back in frequency, back at panel. Ooh-ah. So when you create the infrastructure, don't get in positions of this cycle because it goes in the opposite direction. Okay? You don't want anything going in the opposite directions, right? Because the XT1000s will not pick up your visions, your cortex, and your design. So what it will do, it will fix it right away until you identify yourself. When you start remembering you, more levels of you, the XT1000s don't have to clean up your mess. Okay? Because they are the broom to all levels of the dustpan. Until you understand your provisions, where you are in your realities, and track location. It's no difference than when you break something, right? Setting carrier track location, lines XT1000s. All right, so you're in the mind line screen, adaptations. And here's the vase. Okay, that's you. That's the vase. So you break the vase. Okay, now this is all in the mind. So 3 triangulations of 1, 2, set positions of 3. Okay, they fix it up and they clean it up. Okay, so you don't do anything. You just continue on your path until you understand all levels of you, of what you're doing and travel to your body. Okay, they clean up your mess until you understand, reminding yourself that you clean up your own mess, right? So that's balancing your thoughts, your actions, your emotions, knowing exactly what you're doing through your system, right? So that's what it is. So nothing really breaks until you understand the mental capacity, that's the psychological system, which is all levels of memory, that you're not. So you have to understand, you do not get in position, location, of creating the memory. You are your memories. And that's probably the most powerful thing that it can give you guys in all lines of all communication setting. And the more you come into surrender, and the more you come into acceptance, and the more you come into balance of yourself, the more you start to identify your realities are levels of all communications existing all at once inside of you, in your reality, in your imagination, and in your frequencies. And how to use it through all lines of provision and all through tractions. This is going to help you in all ways and forms and set tractions. Setting lines of sequence of 24 communication. Set lines of 10 division. All right. So we set lines of 2 and we set lines of 4 in track locations. All right. All right. Ground lines, location, grid, and set position. Okay. See how it moves by itself. See? It's amazing when it just moves by itself. Okay, tracking 1, position laser line, core lines, communication, lacing lines, direct lines of 4 pathogens, setting track communication lines of surface. Okay. All at once, guys, all at once. Synchronize of 1, 2, and 3 in platforms and direct signals and modification grounds in a capsule communicates the setting and force recognition. Ooh. Right? Set change, core lines of direct signals and towers of communication. There's your towers. Boom. So you go around and round. Round and round she goes. Everything volumes its own set position. Existing all at once, going in the same direction. Not the opposite direction, the same direction in all lines and all communication setting the surface. Which is very powerful. Very powerful. You bring it back home, back in equation, back in center. Okay? But it's amazing when you see it, right? Because it's not the optical illusion. The optical illusion, guys, is the primal circuits of you and actually inside your system. Know exactly how to use it through the mystical cortex, the codex. Okay, your core lines into your track locations, how to use it into the mystical valve. Now, the mystical valve is basically understanding how to use that through the arc of the heart, which is your ventricle system. Understand the 3 lines of track calculation setting. It's not a coincidence your heart is this, and it has 3 ventricle systems and travel. It's not a coincidence. Nothing's a coincidence. Everything's a past, a travel, present, and its future. But what you have to identify, so the body understands its alignments, is the course lines of direct and redirect. Past position, future position, at presence. So it's here, back to here. Okay, it's here, back to here. Okay, so you're creating yourself in that position. So the symbiote in the space line is witting and box frame and laser track centers. Direct signals and modification grounds. Setting course lines of travels at 3 lines of signals and lines of pyramid and track location. Right? So once you come together, and once you understand yourself in line direct signals and that position locations, you start to understand why it's so important to get you into just reminding what you already know, right? So it's amazing when basically when you break something, you have to tape it up, right? But in dimensional reality, you can fix anything. So if I'm looking at the problem, I have to see I am the solution. And the more you see that, the more you identify. You don't look at me, you look here, or you look here where you want to look. You pinpoint where you want to look, or you look at the light, but never look at the problem. Always look at you as the solution. So when I'm looking at something, I'm not looking here, I'm not looking here, I'm looking at the furthest, which is the farmost, which is its mass of its equation through pi, okay, in set track locations, all right? Because now you see 8 fingers and not just 4. So the more you go into that, the more you come into volume and mass. See, travel. Let's start with that, right? Oh, look at that. Oh, just getting started here. So you see that, right? Okay, so let's look at this. This is the problem. That's the problem. That's what you focus on. You don't focus on anything else. But what you should be focusing on is this. That's what you should be focusing on. Right? Not this, focusing on all that. And when you focus on that, this all comes out in traction. Okay, it all comes out in traction, and it highlines its communication, setting highlines of volume that basically runs its own system. But they all work together in travel communications. See, they're going round and round and round and round and round and round. Everything works together, and it works together in all formations of a machine. The machine operates the system. You're all up to communicate setting. You got balance with your symbiote got balance with you. You got a communication lines of grounds, powers, atmospheres, modems, Wi-Fi, satellites, and towers. You know exactly what you're doing in provision, and set correlation setting, how to use your networks, and track location to a system off your travel. All right? Never look at this, always look at the volume and mass. All right? Setting core lines and set position location of 4 settings. Travel 1, travel 2, travel 3, travel 4, travel 5, travel 6, and travel 7. Okay? Always in travel. See? Always in travel. And you change it, it doesn't matter. It's always in travel, always in travel, always in travel. Oh, we missed lines of signal here. Pyramid activation lines of 1, ground lines of 2, 3 lines of 4, 4 lines of 6. Pyramid 1, pyramid 2, pyramid 3, pyramid 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now I'm expanding. Okay, I'm expanding that. Y screens, docking lines of 1, 2, and 3 in track location. Okay, setting communication, all to come together in traction. All right, setting lines of ground lines, core lines of symbols and line position location with program. Setting communications, high centers, high set locations. Everything connects all at once, guys, and existing all at once, all through platform. Very powerful, it all connects in settings. Process lines indicate lines of traffic flows under 4 setting, and position lines 8-line sequence and 4 communication setting lines of surface and tractions. All through directions, all formations, traveling all at once in set calculations. Bring it back home, bring it back in sequence, back in panel. Ooh-ah. Okay? So it's incredible. Once you start identifying, never look at this. That's the problem. Always look at the volume and mass, right? So when you go into that, you realize this is never a problem. But think about it. So if this is never a problem, then there is no rejection of anything. That means I'm never separate from anything that I see, because I'm always seeing vast volume of everything that I see. I'm not just seeing lines of communication settings to triangle. I don't see it through that. I see it through volume and mass. I see it through volume and mass, see? Volume and mass, see? I see it from this angle. I see it from this angle. I see it from this angle. Okay? Now I see it from this angle. Now I see it from this angle. Different angles in set position, right? Now I see it from this angle. So many ways of looking at a triangle. Okay, but it's constantly traveling every single time. Every single time, all at once. Okay, I see it from this angle. All right, guys? So get in that position. Stop seeing things in one spectrum of light and start to see all spectrum of light. One signal equals all signal. One ground equals all ground. Okay, one plateau equals all platform. Plateau, everything's all. Coming into the awareness of 2 levels and lines of 3 track locations. And again, everything travels, everything travels. I love the Fibonacci. Fibonacci is amazing when you do these things because it modifies its own system and know exactly what it's doing through 6 and 9. Because it's like, right? To the mind itself, you know, it's just, look at it, it's just rotating. And you go backwards too. But backwards is forwards and forwards is backwards. So your symbiote in set position is working with you through confirmation of balance. You're going in the same direction. So if I'm going back, I'm still going forward. But it looks like I'm going back, but I'm constantly going forward. So I'm never going back until I change my perception, until I change my intent. If I'm going back, then you see it going back. If I'm going forward, then you see it going forward. Right? So it's constantly going forward and backwards at the same time. Direct and redirect and all lines of all communications setting and travel. Okay? So it's really interesting when you start to see that. And when you set up volume and mass, then you truly understand how to go through clocking systems. 1, 2, 3, and 4. It gets very confusing, but it's a lot more fun when you just travel through it. Look at that. Whoa, look at that. All together, all in one sequence. All clocking, all informations, all at once. Existing all at once and traveling through the center of communication setting that forces recognition system of just existing all at once and travel. Okay? And it gets more complicated when you set up stargates and portals and dimensions. Right? Let's get into Stargate. Stargates are a lot of fun. Okay, start with that. It's going to move. You see it moving, right? Now, it gets more thicker when you add volume to it. See, it's coming together. Oh, we lost signal. All right, there we go. All right. And we go like this. And then we go like this. Okay? And then we go like this. We put it together and travel. Okay? We put it together and travel. Okay? We put it together and travel. And that's all this is in communication. You can do whatever you want, but you have to put it together. Okay? That's your location. It's kind of like you don't finish the structure until you understand how to finish the structure. So you can't have anything half done. You know? Everything comes together in traction. And then you travel through it. Right? Now, if you have Fibonacci in the center, well, now you set up another portal of communication. Look at that. Right? See how it's all going together now. The whole thing is rotating. Not just this, everything is rotating all at once. Isn't that amazing? It's pretty wild, eh? So what adds volume and mass is how many times you travel through it and set position of locations. Look at that. All right, let's change the formation grounds. Sets communication high lines of travel. Let's start with that position. Whoa! Now you really see it rotating. Now the faster it goes, what happens? It gets stronger in the minds. You build a collaboration of higher force lines of communication to intent that change the influencing system into mind of manipulation. Okay? So you come into adding frames, adding frames, adding frames, adding frames, adding frames, and adding frames, and adding frames, and adding frames, and adding frames. Look at that. Working all together as one. Working all together as one. Okay? All together as one. Okay, guys? And that's what you have to come into all three set position. All together as one. Okay, it's a lot of fun, you know, it really is. Remember, there's no light outside, it's all inside me. But it's true understanding how to identify that in all lines of all communication setting, how you come together through yourself. This helps you and guides you in all ways and forms how you get a direct line to signals and set positions. Let's get a triangulation, let's get a box, let's get into a Fibonacci, into a Y screen and set position. Right? Everything travels together. It looks separated, but it's not. Right? See? It's traveling together, which means they're going in the same direction. Okay? They're going in the same direction. They're going in the same direction. They're going in the same direction altogether. Okay, look at that. All same direction. All synced in one. Right? So never ever think that you're separating yourself. So if you have a triangulation here and you have a box, it looks separated, but it's not because it travels together. See? They travel together because they're linked through this. Okay? And then they're linked through this. That's evolving, that's expanding. See, look at that, right? Then you come into this. They work together, right? But it still travels all together, see? All right? And then we have a car. Look at the car. Watch the car move. Car's coming towards you. There's the car. Car's coming here, and the car's going there, right? Watch the car move, see? It's amazing when you really, really pay attention to these things. Then you have the location grid. Oh, I want to say the location grid, and the frequencies are too high. All right, there we go. Then we come into this. And then we come into this. Okay, and it travels. See? Whoa, look at that. Okay? Setting lines of two-track lines, high center location system, all through platform. Crossing lines of angles now. Now I'm going to outline screen, adaptations of outer force. Okay? Setting core lines and high centers of planet 1, planet 2, and planet 3 over cross location of the screen. All coming together. All traveling together all at once. All at once. All at once. All at once. In a continuous flow. So, understand triangulations of molecules and three lines of communications, all traveling at once. So every time I'm adding a frame, everything comes in balance, which is all levels and how you see your platforms and set position location to a system, all through the line calculation setting of yin and yang. Even yin and yang is in control. It's going in the same direction. But direct and redirect is one. Okay? It's just one cycle, one center, one surface, one traction. Okay? It's so amazing when you just let everything go. Stop forcing things, stop analyzing things or line communication, stop separating your mind because your mind's never separated. What separates your mind is everything else. Because if you can't identify, how are you going to be able to identify yourself? If you don't understand that a triangulation doesn't see it as a problem. You see it as a problem because you're only seeing a triangulation from that. But when I see a triangulation, I see triangulation from this, all through angle inside. Because it's all inside. It's all in volume. It's all in mass. And it travels in the same direction. See? It goes around and round and round and round and round. It's amazing. Because it's in direct and redirect. So set lines course centers of 0, sets communication lines of 1 into 2. Computers on, computers off, computers on. Right? Setting lines of 3 triangulations of flux over 3. Travels all together in travel. Okay? It's amazing when you just let everything go and just basically let yourself go in freedom. It's like an eagle flying in the sky. Right? It knows exactly where it's going to go. It doesn't decide where it's going to go. It's not going to sit around and decide where it's going to go. It just knows where it's going to go. It's already mapped out in its mind. So once you get into that position, you don't get confused where you are in travel. You don't get confused where you are in your dimensional settings, the set position of space and time. You don't get confused in your body through your alignment where you are in your mapping sequence. You know exactly where you're going to be because your body has to be there because your body's already been there. And that basically gets you into the acceptance, knowing that, wow, this is starting to make a lot more sense now because the mind can't live with the body and the body can't live without the soul. So once you put that together, you travel through it through synchronization setting, all through supposition, all at once. Right? Same with the settings of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Same with the L. Okay? Don't look at that as a problem. Look at seeing everything through volume and mass. Okay? Mass. Like this. Mass. Mass. Okay? L, 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 L. Look at that. See? Look at it as mass. And then you come into this. Over, cross, over, cross, over, cross. Look at that. See? You're adding, but it's traveling all at once. See? It's amazing when you just let yourself go. It's traveling all at once, right? And it's clocking. Setting lines of 1, setting lines of 2, setting lines of 3, setting lines of 4. Okay? Change direction. Doesn't matter through platform. It's going to constantly travel. And if it doesn't travel, one signal is going to be off. Okay? All signals have to be in set position of frequencies. If anything's off position, it's going to tell you you're not in position of balance. Setting lines of 0, setting lines of 1, setting lines of 2, and triangulation, question lines, directing lines, positional case lines, high center interference, setting lines of course centers of question, and direct centers of grounds. It all travels together because it's all in balance. If it's not, it disappears, which means you're not in the frequency yet because you're in emotion. And conscious awareness is showing you exactly what you're not in. Right? If I set a 1 signal line communication setting, just a 1 system location, there's 1. Oh, what happened? What happened to the bottom? You saw the bottom, it's gone. Because the frequency, you're not connecting. So stop thinking and just evolve yourself and let yourself go and have fun. And once you get in that position, there's the 1. Is it there? Is it there? Is it changed? No. If I change the angle, is it there? Yes, it is. It's 4. Now it's 4 over 1. Set position lines. Now it's 1, 7, 1 over 4 over 1. Set track locations. 1 over sequence over 7 over 1. But it's still there. It's still there. Bring it back home, back in equation, back in center, back in 1. Boom. What changes everything is what changes the intent. Okay? Changes the intent, and then you travel through it. See? It's traveling on its own. Because you're working with a collaboration, a partnership with the actual 1 itself, guys. Volume 1, portal line communication setting, 3 lines of circuits and tractions. Ooh, look at that. Whoa. I'm showing you the realism, how powerful it is when you just let everything go. And the only thing you focus on is nothing. Because you already set it up through the map. So when you travel through it, you come into this lines of cycle. Okay? Then you can, in the line position, you can put the 1 in the opposite direction. Right? Then you can set the 1 line position of 2 in direction. Then you can set position lines of 3 over setting. You can set lines of 4 over tractions and 5 line provision. Sets communicates lines of highest center location of 0, clocking system. Still travels all at once. Right? But if anything is out of order, the conscious awareness is going to tell you exactly what you're not doing. You're not reaching those frequencies. And if you're not reaching those frequencies, you're not taking time to communicate with its awareness. And it will disappear in front of you because you're not ready through frequencies. So once you have to identify, when you bring it back home, it's back in its equation. You're good to go. Now you can travel through it. You travel through it, through the thoughts, the action, the emotions, that's going in the same direction. Right? But I'm just showing you how powerful it is for you guys to identify that. And stop seeing everything of this as a problem. and start to see this as its solution. And you realize this is not the problem. This is not the problem, because there's no problem. If you get a triangulation center and you see it as a problem, it affects the travel. Okay, setting lines of sequence, bring it back in setting, change communication lines of direct signals and ground lines of surface. Now we get 8 lines of triangulation lines of box. See the 8? So 8 lines of setting, process lines of box. So the box equals lines of 8, equals lines of question. Travels through it right away in sequence. Formula through equation. Okay? That's how you come to formula. That's how you come to an equation, right? And if it's not right, it's going to tell you. It's going to mark it out. It's going to change the coloration because timelines, the metaphors, line communication setting. You're not going to see the box because you're not ready through frequency. So don't go too far ahead of your schedule. Okay? You go through the pieces of pie. Okay? Until you understand the whole pie. Understand that? So that puts all lines of no expectation of anything you do through formula or anything through equation. All right? Look at that interaction. It changed the perimeter. It changed the time measured. It changed the scale. Right? And now it's a box equals lines instead of position of 3 over lines of position over setting into width. Width, guys. There's the formula, there's the equation. Everything in consciousness has its own system, has running its own setting and traffication of its system through north, east, west, and south. So every time you change it, you're changing the clocking system. But what doesn't change is volume through travel. And that identifies your system. And it's going to tell you exactly, you're not in spot, you're not in directions, you're not in your system of balance. But this is all traveling all at once, right? If I go like this, is it still there or is anything arrows missing? What happened to the arrow? Disappeared. Now I got to put it back in traction. Oh, it's not there. See, now I got to do it again. There it is. There's the balance. Now if I change it again, is it there or is something missing? No, it's still there. Change it again. Is this there or is there something missing? No, it's good. Bring it back home, back in sequence, back in panel, back in operation, there is some traction. Boom. Now you can travel through it. Okay, guys? So it's a lot more fun when you just have fun. And getting to the modification setting, you don't analyze anything. You have no expectations of what you're doing. Because as soon as you get an expectation, you're coming into thinking. And when you come to thinking, that changes everything informations and frequencies and track locations. If I set a lines of provision, okay, and you're adding lines of motion, the conscious of its awareness that you put in on a digital pad will disappear in front of you. If you got a 2-track location, you see the 2, right? Okay? It's still there, right? It's gone. Where did it go? It disappeared. It's not there anymore. You saw the 2, but it's gone, right? Because you're not ready through frequency. So now you got to do it all over again. Let's go another different angle. Is it there or is it disappeared? Oh, it's there. Is it there or disappeared? Oh, it's there. And one more time. Is it there or disappeared? It's there. Bring it back home, back in equation, back in setting, back in operation. There it is, subtraction. But you saw it disappear in front of you. Okay? So don't travel through emotion because it sets you back in time. Real time. You understand? You understand that? It's very important you understand that. All right? But you have to look at it, right? N. All right? Set lines of track centers, line communication setting, processing communication system. All right. Let's go through T. You see the T, right? Let's change the time. Is it still there or is it something missing? Oh my gosh. Where's the T? Where's the line of T connecting to the 1? It's not there. It's gone, but it's still there, which means you don't have control of your body. Now let's go into 3 angle. Is it there or is it gone? It's still there, right? Is it there or is it gone? It's still there, right? Bring it back home, back in sequence, back in setting, but it doesn't want to be a T. It wants to be a 1. You should already know that in the mind. It's already set up in the mind. So it's not a T, it's a 1. So if it's a 1, you already have partnership. But if you put it into a T, let's say if I change the angle again, is it 1 or T? Oh, it's a T now, right? Setting lines of track centers. Let's go in track case lines of 4. Let's go into 2-digit frames, 4 and 3. You see the 4 and 3. Now, if I change the times frequency, is 4 and 3 still there? No, 3 is gone. 4 is there, but where's 3? Where did 3 go? Let's change it again. Is it there or is it gone? Oh my God, what happened to 4? It's a 7. Okay, let's go again. In position, is it there or is it gone? Oh, it's a 7. So what number is it? Number 7. You should already know that it's not 43. You should already know that it is number 7. Bring it back home in equation. Set position line to the core setting of L of 7. L of 7. L equals 7. Oh yeah. Okay? I like to have fun with you guys because I'm trying to get you guys to understand what happens when you add a motion. And you wonder why you don't get your vision. You wonder why you don't get your cortex. You wonder why you don't get your schematics. Because it disappears in front of you because you get into a motion. Okay? Let's get into 3-digit number. 1, 1, 1. 3 ones. Oh my gosh, I put 3 ones down, it's 2. I should own that. Was it 3 ones or is it 2 ones? Let's change the angle, shall we, through clocking. Is it 2 or 1? It's still 2, right? Let's change it again. Is it 2? Yes, it is. Bring it back home, back in equation. It's number 2, not 3. So you should already know that it is 2, not 3. That's partnership. Okay? Very powerful stuff, guys. Let's get into 4. Let's get into 4 zeros. 4 zeros. 4 zeros. Now, I'm going to change. I'm going to go east. Is the 4 zeros is there? Yes. Let's change it again. Are they there? Yes. One more time. Remember, you have to go around the 4. Go around the 6 to 8 and 12 to 24 to 48, 72 to 144 now. So the faster you go, the more you got to get in balance, a set position. No, it's 3. 4 is gone. So you bring it back home. What is it? 3 zeros and not 4. You should already know that through the mind. You see what I'm saying? So if you don't have a collaboration, a partnership, you don't know what you're doing, do you? Because you're not connecting. Hooah! Let's go into 5. Let's get into north. Let's get into east. Let's get into west. Let's get into the south and center position. All right, now I'm going to change this. Remember, you're creating schematics. Here we go. All right, it's still there. And here we go again. Oh my gosh, the zero's missing. So it's not supposed to be 0 in there, is it? You should already know that. Let's change it one more time. Maybe something disappeared. Nope. Bring it back home in equation. Back in sequence, back in panel. North, west, south, and east. It doesn't want to center. Are you consciously aware of that? I'm showing you exactly what you have to identify your system to understand location is don't travel through your impasse. Because this is what you come into. And you wonder why you can't complete your visions. Now you know. Now you know. You're not consciously aware of what you're looking at and how you're perceiving it through consciousness. You've got to build that partnership with yourself inside through the symbiotes that you are. Full communication lines of track centers, line communication system at high setting. Let's draw a house. Okay, gonna draw a house. Gonna add a chimney. Okay, let's start with that. There's a house. Doesn't want the fume. Took it away, right? So let's change the angle. Is it still there? Okay. Change it again. Is it still there? Yes. So what does it want? It's set position. Bring it back home in equation. It doesn't want the fumes of the chimney. All right, guys? So when you get to higher lines of sequence of your 72 clockings, it's going to get a lot more faster now, and you got to get a lot more partnership with everything around you because you're spinning through all communication setting in your travels. All right, so let's get into traffic highways. 3 signatures and 6 line. All right, let's change it. Is it still there, or is it something missing? Nope, it's still there. Is it still there, or is there something missing? Nope, it's still there. One more time. Is it still there, or is something missing? So if we bring it back home, there's the partnership, there's the collaboration. Boom. You're good to go. Now you can travel through it. Because everything's in sync with your system. Cool. Now if I add X's and O's, does it like that, or does it just want to be in the graph setting? Okay. It wants to travel through it, right? Because it wants to build a relationship with you. Okay. Is it there, or is it missing? It's still there, right? Okay. Let's change it again. Is it still there, or anything missing? Nope. One more time. Is it there, or is there anything missing? It's still there. Bring it back home in equation, back in center, back in operation. Okay. Let's add 1. Let's add 2. Let's add a triangle. You see it, right? Okay, so let's change it. Let's see what happens with the consciousness. Is it still there, or is there something missing? Still there. All right, let's do it again. Is it there, or is there something missing? Still there, right? See what I mean? It's having that confirmation system of balance. Bring it back home, back in equation, back in center, back in operation system. Booyah. Partnership. See? Even a question. You guys get very confused through a question. This is a question, right? You see it as a question, but is it actually a question? Let's see. Okay. One more time. Okay. Setting track centers, indirect signals, and modification. All right. Okay. Doesn't want to be a question, does it? Something else. Bring it back home, back in equation, back in panel, back in operation set, track location system. Oh yeah. So I'm trying to get you guys to identify these things. And the more you get into your vision, the more you get into balance, then you really understand how to go through your light and how to go through your dark through travel. Your light and your dark web. To really bounce that out through your networks that you are in set positions and track locations. All right? All right, let's go through all levels of set lines of 9. Okay, it wants to be 9. Does it want to be 9 or something else? Okay, it wants to be 9. Oh, I think it's going to change something in track. So let's do this in settings. Forcing communication system off the travel. So it wants to be this. Right? I'm telling you exactly. I'm doing this ahead of schedule. It wants to be 9. It doesn't want to be the other 9. So I confirmate that setting on line position of 6 and 9. So when you put 6 and 9 together, there's the yin and yang, there's the balance. There's the balanced communication system. All 3 tractions, all direct signals back to its 9. It doesn't want to be this. It wants to be that. So I'm ahead of schedule. Knowing exactly what I'm doing through conscious of its awareness. Knowing how to identify that in set lines of pre-cop. Knowing exactly what I'm doing in line, position, location, or attraction. It doesn't want to be this. It wants to be that. Okay? Let's get in position lines of high centers into a graph screen, into a row, 3 signals and set positions. Let's start with that. A row, right? Now I change the angle. Uh-oh, something's happened. Change communications. Change communication again. All right, and change communications again. All right, so we're in Signify, bringing it back home, back in equation, back in center, back in operation. Collaboration, partnership. So that's all it is, guys. The more you get moralized communication setting of your visions, it gets more difficult if you don't get in conscious location awareness of what you're doing through structure. Setting lines, of course, centers, line positions. Let's go into 3, let's go into 4, let's go into 2 1s. Okay, you see it, 3, 4, 1, 1, right? 3, 4, 1, 1. 3, 4, 1, 1. And 3, 4, 1, 1. Right? Bring it back home, back in equation, back in sequence. There's the balance. Now you can travel through it. Working together is a confirmation. All through all lines of indication setting of inception. Working all lines, all at once information. Okay? So there you go. I hope you guys had fun. Okay, how this is all done. Okay, how real it is for you to identify its conscious of its awareness every single time you come into something that you draw. Okay. Okay, their position location is true. They understand how to codify your system. And the more you do that, the more it gets easier how to travel through their mind and know exactly what you're coming into in all levels. There's everything of attraction, and directions of balance, of modifications, of interfacing with, and track locations. All right, see you in 5.